Hi, my name's Catherine, and I did the longer video on safe relationships, and I just wanted to do a shorter intro, a bit of a background, a bit more of a discussion, but give you a bit of an idea of why I think it's so important that we start prioritizing what we actually mean. We all know safe relationships is important. We all know if you're supporting people, we know that connecting with them, building that trust, helping them feel safe is the most important thing that we can do before we do anything else. And I go a bit more into the why in my video. But I don't doubt that we all know that. I used to think give all the evidence, give all the research and prove to people. I don't think that's why we're not doing more on it. To give you a bit of a context, I've been doing this for over 20 years. Apart from my first ever job over 20 years ago, no one has ever had the conversation with me or in a place that I've worked about, well, what do we mean by safe relationship? How do we create safe relationships? How do we make everybody feel safe? How do we feel safe? We just don't do it. How do we help people manage behaviours and help people feel safe? We're just not doing it. We're starting to do it a little bit more now with trauma informed, but still not in any sort of in-depth way. And we need to start doing it, because if we're not training staff in this, our jobs are hard enough, and actually creating safe relationships makes our job easier. Creating safe relationships starts with looking at ourselves and looking after ourselves. So everybody wins by it because it's the secret ingredient about how we can best help people that have had trauma. And it helps us, and yet we're still not talking about it. So my longer video is going in a bit more in depth about it. And I think one of the reasons I think is that we're misunderstanding what it means, or we assume that we know what it means. So I've been on so much training, and all they say is therapeutic alliance is important, be empathic and non-judgmental, and that's it. And well, what do you mean by that? You can train people, empathy is great, but we also need to train people how to not get into empathic distress, which is a real thing if we don't help people with it. But also being non-judgmental. What do we mean by that? Do you realize that actually telling people there are better ways for them to deal with things, telling them to change, if somebody's angry, telling them to calm down is being judgmental. And we're all judgmental in different ways, but that's why we need to have the conversation so we understand what it looks like to everybody. But it's a lot more than that. If you are, and I really hope that you are someone who was blessed with a childhood where you felt safe, where you knew what at least one safe relationship, you understood what it meant. For a lot of the people that we're supporting, they've never had that. And actually, they've had the opposite. The people that are supposed to help them have harmed them. Whenever they've trusted someone, it has made things worse. They have ingrained in them that not to trust people, not to feel safe. Us assuming we know how it is, us saying trust us is not going to overcome a childhood of conditioning. And again, that's why we need to, as staff, we have to be having this conversation with our staff. We have to be having this conversation with each other because we're only doing half a job, really. We all want to do our best. We're all kind and caring. But the fact that we've got so many burnt out staff, which actually makes it harder to help people feel safe, also means that we don't feel safe. And it is about, and I don't quite understand why we're not having more conversations on it, because I quite often say to organisations, well, how much of your time is spent training people in interventions and training people in practical things and risk assessments and getting people to record all that? And how much of your time is on discussing and going in depth and helping people with safer relationships? It's usually nearly zero. We're starting now with trauma informed. We're starting to have the conversation, but we're still not going hugely in depth. So that's why, I cover that partly. There are other reasons I think why we're a bit hesitant to do it. If we're busy, we're burnt out, it's hard enough to learn anything new. But when it's something that involves looking at ourselves and we're, got our own issues going on, that's why it's got to be handled well. But it's also why we need to start the conversation. So just to give you a bit of a more of an idea of what I cover and the reason why we need to get this. So all those behaviours there, they're signs that someone doesn't feel safe. Now, in the old days, traditionally, all of those behaviours were behaviours we believed we had to set boundaries. We had to tell people they had to change. We had to use the carrot and stick. And that would help. We would challenge people on it. And as we learn better, we do better. We now know that that's completely wrong way to do things and actually doesn't help. We can force people to change, and that's what happens a lot of the time. But we're not helping them really change. We're just making them change when they're with us, and everything else is continuing the same. So when this is going on, it's a signal that we need to do more to help them feel safe. And there are some people we will find easy and some people we find difficult, because that's again why we need to be looking at this. And it's about helping people get ready for these situations. Because being shocked, panicking about new things that come up will not help people feel safe. That's the preempting bit. And I'm going to do it on another video, because this again is something that I've had to teach myself. We can 100% manage those behaviours while helping that person feel safe. So even if somebody comes in and they're kicking off, we can manage that in a much better way by helping them feel safe and helping them regulate and calm down. Much better than telling them they need to change, telling them they need to calm down, telling them to get out, us getting angry and feeling we need to protect everybody. That is just going to make them protect themselves more and feel more unsafe. And they're the people that actually need us to help them feel safe more than others. And they're going to test us with it. Why should they trust us? I think sometimes we just assume that because we know we can be trusted and we know we're kind and caring, they should. Why? Why should they? They don't know you. They don't know your life. And again, they're so good at reading people's emotions because they needed to survive. And they're reading your emotions. Even if you don't know what's going on with your emotions, they're assessing that before they even listen to what you say. And when this is going on, if you treat it as a cry for safety, they're going to start trusting you. If you treat it as a bad choice that they need to change, they're not going to trust you. So it starts with things like this. There'll be a little bit of a test. And I've had people that, sometimes quite blatantly testing and said the most shocking things to see my reaction, because that's part of it, is whether we can handle. They want to know that we can handle all the pain and the trauma that they are carrying around. And they're testing you. And we need to learn that with this job. It's not about being a therapist. It's not about being perfect. But it's about being aware. And it's about us learning this and being supported with this. And as I say, us feeling safe within services. And it's just starting with those conversations that we're not really having. And us looking at maybe, how do we feel safe? How safe do we feel at work? So I've done a lot of work in organisations where people don't feel safe. Some organisations they do. A lot of organisations people don't. And that needs to be addressed on a cultural level within the organisation about why people are not feeling safe. Because it's hard to help other people feel safe if we don't. And then, we can't be blaming clients. We should never be blaming clients for any of those behaviours I listed. It's not a fault of the client. It's because we haven't learned how to help them feel safe. Them behaving that way is a normal, natural outcome of their past. They're coming to us for help. It's about us learning how to help them feel safe enough that they don't need to protect themselves. This is the essential core of the work for me, for the work that we do, and certainly within Trauma Informed. And I'd say the longer video, I go a bit more about what are our fears, about us looking at our own emotions, about us. We're already busy. When we help ourselves with that, we will do better and the clients will do better. And as I said at the beginning, it's win-win. The video, I go into a lot more in depth. I go into, some of the other reasons why we might not be doing it, how we can start doing it, how we can start being aware of our emotions, some simple things. It's not about us being in therapy necessarily. Some practical things. Safety is different for different people. What makes you feel safe doesn't necessarily make other people feel safe. And trying to make it easy, because this is not, that we've got to tie ourselves in knots for every single person or become a completely neutral person for everybody. It's not. So hopefully, listen to the video. Let's start having those conversations, and let's start, because we need this more than ever at the moment. Our clients are not hard to reach. They're not even hard to treat. I've worked, as I say, probably said, worked in addictions for a long, long time. We always say addiction's hard to treat. It's not. We've just been treating it in the wrong way. Let's start putting that right. Thank you for listening.